Styx. Every culture has a different version of it, but there's a river or a body of water that you cross. Just like in order to incarnate the cosmos, God had to come upon the face of the waters and then act upon those, and then, emanationism in terms of what happens to the surface of water happens in reality or in the cosmos. Just as that impetus came from God to do that, when we die, we return back across that water. That's what that symbolizes. And for the master, who is an angel, a powerful angel, rebellious one, to come into this world and take over, he has to cross that river. And so there's a symbol in that. And on the license plate of the van, nobody, I don't think, has realized this. It says IDK, and then there's a space, and it says R13. And we talked about the 13th piece, the missing piece of Osiris, or when Christ fed the disciples, his 12 disciples, he was the 13th. It represents the sun that sits in the middle of the zodiac. The word sun, S-U-N, and S-O-N are the same word. We Christians are sun worshippers in every sense of the word. It's become something totally different from what it originally was. So everything revolves around the sun, literally. And so the master gets unleashed, and there is a thing with the IDK R13. I don't know R13. In ritualistic magic, they'll take somebody of each zodiac sign, and there'll be one woman. Just like in Star Wars, there's one woman. There's the 12 representing the zodiac and all the different powers, and there's one woman. In Peru, I read in the mysteries down there, there are 12 mountains, and only one of them is a feminine mountain. That's another mystery. But the 13th, they're supposed to be, they're waiting for the 13th to incarnate, who will be their head and things like that. Or maybe their leader died, and there's no guidance, and that's why this fissure happened. Who knows? But the next things in here is, remember the old rich man who backs the master faces off. On the other side of this, fighting the vampires, is Councilwoman. The blonde-haired lady looks just like Hillary Clinton. She's a politician from New York, just like Hillary Clinton. And so it's a struggle between her fighting for one side and this rich white man from New York City with all this money fighting for the other, and the master has him in his pocket. The woman, the Hillary Clinton lady, this was in like 2015, it was before the election. Pretty sure they killed her off. And then the master took the old man's body. This eclipse and what's going on with all this, it represents what you don't see in the daytime because the sun blocks everything out. We see different stars and everything than we've ever seen during the eclipse. And what this represents are the powers that influence us now become prominent because the sun's light cannot be seen and cannot interfere with the celestial light. And then when things become more subtle, you can pick up, or quiet, you can pick up more subtle vibrations. Just like when Nostradamus used to put the cloak over him in this tripod with a bowl of water. And it could only work at perhaps 3 a.m. when things are most quiet. There's less vibrations disturbing the ether. There can't be wind. You have to have absolute calm. And during that time, just like in meditation, you receive impulses that come from other dimensions. And you can ask questions and get answers better, just like in meditation. And at 3 a.m., that's when we have a eureka moment. That's when a lot of inventors come up with their best ideas, and we have the most intense dreams. And that's also when a lot of paranormal activity happens. The other dimensions can sort of manifest here. They're happening all the time, but all the light and the sound and the wind and the fans, all of that disturbs ether, and so you can't pick up on the subtleties. What the eclipse represents is bringing that sort of state, that for that moment, it sort of brings the things within us, the subtle things that are really deep within us that we don't express, come out. And it's sort of, that's why fascism, the master, last time he fed the old Jew that's fighting him, remembers him because he was feeding on the Jews in the concentration camps. And he was specifically fit to fight this fight, as an old man with all his wisdom, and being able to see more of history that the rest of humanity forgot. Because we forget, fascism happens again and again, and we keep supporting strong men who are conservatives, who don't believe they can't see outside of themselves. They can't fathom what it must be like to be a woman and need an abortion. They can't fathom what it must be like to be a Latino in America was brought here as a kid and now is going to be sent to a foreign country with tons of crime and murders going on. It might have no family there. It's just, that's what the old white man in this represents, who has everything but understands nothing. And so the master betrays him and takes his body, and then instills fascism. The eclipse sort of represented with this alt-right movement and things like that. All these people who are closet racists all of a sudden come out and are okay and emboldened by it, and they wear their Trump hats in the street and harass immigrants. And you have cases like this happening, but it's the same thing that happened in Italy and in Russia when they were getting rid of the Jews, and then when in Germany, and what's happening right now. Never in such good economic times. This is the best job market I've ever seen in my lifetime and ever will, and it's about to stop in the next year or two. Yet you have all these alternative movements coming to power in Europe and all the parliamentary systems, and strongmen coming to power, coming to fix things when things aren't even broken. What's going to happen when we go into this next recession? The greatest disparity of wealth in all of our history, at least modern history, is right now. And we don't feel it at the bottom, but with the recession that's coming, everyone's going to feel it, and they're going to be at each other's throat, just like Warren Buffett said. So in the stream, I wanted you to just realize those symbols. There's a lot more than that. Perhaps I'll do a part 2, but let me know what you think. I don't want this to be too long. All right, bye-bye.
The last part that I forgot, that I'm just adding on to the end of this one, is Mr. Quinlan. Quinlan is sort of the half-blood prince, like in Harry Potter, which is herald of the age of the pot or the urn, which is the age of Aquarius, the man with the urn upon his shoulders. As of December 21st, 2012, or around there, just like Jesus said, you'll know when the time is being renewed, or when the new age appears, when you see a man at the well pouring an urn of water out. That's what he was talking about, the age of Aquarius. And that is when man will worship man, or worship the sun in the image of man, or worship himself, as people take it as a sign of vanity, that we'll become more vain, which of course we have. But Aquarius represents revolution and individualism and decentralization of power. So what Mr. Quinlan represents, Quin or Quintus, was his old Latin name, sort of represents the number 5, like pence which pence could mean like pensive thinking, or pence, the number 5, like in Tetris, which is tetra 4. If you played a more advanced one, you got Pinterest, which is 5 squares. So Mr. Quinlan, who represents the number 5, or man, because the pentagram with the star with the upright is the head, the 2 arms, and the 2 legs. It represents man. If it's inverted, it represents the perversion of man. You can imagine what the bottom one means. So the star, the pentagram, is a sacred symbol. It's an emblem of man. So Mr. Quinlan, whose father was the master because he bit a pregnant woman, his mother was sort of the goy or the goyim, and the father was of that sacred lineage because he's the master. Just like in the predictions about the antichrist, that he'll be a Jew of the tribe of Dan, but on his father's side. A lot of people speculate that Jared Kushner would be the antichrist because they put together a whole segment on CNN, and I really questioned it too, because they said he's going to make peace with Israel. They kept showing him underneath 666 Fifth Avenue that he bought, and he's leading the charge into fixing identity theft. And I had this idea so long ago, by giving us a RFID chip. That way no one could steal your identity, no one could commit tax fraud, your medical information would be there, everything would be in one place in just a computer chip. That is the future. The computer chip does not cause cancer or anything like that. They've already put them in humans. They've done it. We do it with our animals. We have to microchip them. It's just a passive thing. It's not emitting anything. When you scan over it, all the information's on there. But Jared Kushner is actually Jewish on both his sides, because the Orthodox Jews will only recognize you if it comes down your mother's side. So he can't be, and that he's got to be behind it, portraying himself as this figure. He's too meek. He's not charismatic. He's not the person. And you know, mark my words, he will be in a New York State prison probably before Trump is out of office, because Trump can't pardon state charges, and he's being investigated for corruption, for advertising to China his proximity to power to invest in that failing 666 Fifth Avenue project, among other things. He's the fall guy for Trump. Anyway, Mr. Quinlan, master on the father's side, he was found in a prison back long ago. He was uncivilized, still young relatively, because this is in Roman times. He had a cage on his head, and a woman who found him, just like Chyren found Hercules, represents Sagittarius, the eagle. You'll see it in a new King Arthur, that the eagle that flies around and guides him through his trials, or his night of the soul, the 12 years or whatever that marks. Quinlan was found by this woman, the huntress, and she civilized him. And he ends up being the only one who can bring down the master, because he is of both worlds. He has a foot on both worlds. He has the benefits of immortality and humanity. There was an episode in season 3, episode 3, and I kid you not, I watched it as it premiered, and when they talked about the prophecy, they were sitting in a car, Quinlan and the main guy, Ephraim Goodweather, which is another Jewish name. They were talking about the prophecy, and I was sitting there waiting. As the third season, third episode, I knew there would be something in there. And when it cut out on the television, I was watching it as it appeared, on the Wednesday night. And so when I looked it up and watched it on Xfinity, they took that whole part out. So who knows what was said. Yeah, that was really it. I just wanted to mark that connection with Mr. Quinlan and the Savior, or the one who is for to come. All right, that's it. Bye-bye.